So I intended on starting this video with the high points of Uber, when they were dominating the market, expanding rapidly, increasing profits, and where every investor was thankful that they were involved with the company. But instead, I found that this time has yet to come, and now it may be too late. This is the story of Uber. Back in 2008, Travis Kalanick and Garrett Camp were in France attending the Le Web Tech Conference. One night after the conference, the Uber idea was born when the guys could not find a taxi to get to the hotel. What if we could order a taxi from our phone, they wondered. The very next year, in sunny San Francisco, California, the company was born, and the app was launched in 2010. Both owners were able to fund the startup with their own financing by the selling of their previously owned companies. The original launch was for the hiring of luxury vehicles, but by the very next year they allowed drivers to pick up passengers in their own cars. Also in 2011 was their first international expansion, to France, the birthplace of the idea. They continued this expansion, and in 2013 the service was operating in 30 locations around the world. By 2017, the company was giving service to over 80 countries and 600 locations. In 2019, board members decided that the best thing to do was to take the company public. They eventually became valued at over $40 billion, and in 2021 completed over 6 billion rides altogether. Today, I would imagine that most people in America are aware of Uber and its service. Unfortunately, this is the best light that can be shone on the company, and that light might have just been knocked out. On July 11th, 2022, ex-Uber executive Mark McGann leaked over 124,000 emails, texts, and messages to The Guardian, who shared the data with over 40 other media organizations throughout 29 countries via the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. The leak revealed highly suspicious behavior among some of the top people within the company, some which he could instantly guarantee is true because they were tied to himself. And the information that he provided was nothing short of shocking and unbelievable. It is hard to find the starting point of where things went wrong for Uber, but it may have begun with the business model. Uber allowed nearly anyone with a car to sign up and drive for Uber, without any necessary licenses or permits. Executives even joked about being pirates in this legal gray area. It may appear as though the leaders of the company are not taking it seriously, but their unrelenting expansion tells a different tale. Starting around 2013, Uber began forcing itself into cities in defiance of local laws and regulations, dodging taxes, and seeking to grind into submission the local taxi industry. It didn't matter if it was Spanish business and licensing laws or German competition laws. Uber acted first and asked questions later. The result in both locations was the banning of Uber until they came back later willing to follow the rules. But things will continue to get spicier. The company had found grounding in France since its 2011 expansion, and we may now know why. In 2015, a violent chain of taxi protests began, with the drivers feeling like their business was being threatened by a company who did not have to follow the same guidelines. Government officials partially suspended the riding service. That was, until a personal conversation took place with then Economy Minister and now President Emmanuel Macron, and then magically the ban was lifted just hours later. These private talks would continue as they tried to find a way together to make Uber successful in France. Macron apparently went out of his way to give his support to the company and even discussed a deal that had been made with his French cabinet opponents. What could possibly be even worse is Kalanick saying that the taxi union's violent protests would be worth it, as violence guarantees success for the company. But France was not the only place where taxi drivers protested. Over the years, protests developed in Europe, Asia, South America, and South Africa, where cabbies staged protests, harassed Uber customers, beat Uber drivers, and even set their cars to fire. This weaponizing of drivers was used as a strategy for Uber to keep controversy brewing and to win favor within the local governments. But that wasn't their only strategic plan. Uber's senior executives knowingly ignored laws in dozens of countries across Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. They also sold people a lie about the economic benefits that the company would bring to their economy. To spread its lie, Uber, along with an advisory firm, compiled a list of more than 1,800 stakeholders who were either sitting or formal public officials, think tanks, or citizen groups, with the hopes to lobby and gain influence in over 29 countries and the European Union. This includes deals made with oligarchs in a failed bid to enter the Russian market with Kremlin support, private conversations and meetings with many people, including a U.S. ambassador, the now Chancellor of Germany, U.S. President Joe Biden, two prior presidential campaign managers of Barack Obama, top Dutch politicians, including the country's Prime Minister, and UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. They also paid academics to produce research supporting its economic claims. And yet, somehow, the trouble doesn't stop here. Uber was facing many other issues outside of their global expansion. To begin, the company didn't like paying taxes. So they tried to deflect attention from its tax liabilities by helping authorities collect taxes from its drivers while routing profits through Bermuda and other tax havens. One of Uber's top executives even quit amid questions for the company about whether its European operations were structured in a way that avoided tax. Then, there's the kill switch. The Uber files revealed that the company executives activated a so-called kill switch to cut access to company servers and prevent authorities from seizing evidence during raids on Uber offices in at least 6 countries. A company lawyer passed around a raid manual that told employees what to do if law enforcement officers swooped down on Uber offices to seize potential evidence of illegal conduct. Kalanick personally ordered the use of the switch as police were descending on its Amsterdam headquarters. Another side issue with the company is its previous corporate culture. Back in 2017, after a viral example of sexual harassment and discrimination within Uber, a company-wide investigation pursued, which led to the firing of over 20 employees, including senior executives. Women's rights and protection still evades the company to this day, as they are now facing lawsuits from female riders over sexual assault, harassment, and kidnapping. The final part of this uber-crazy story is the financial side of things. Now, the company was private from 2009 through 2019, so this information was difficult to find, but we will do our best. Starting with its first ride in 2010, the fact that they launched internationally the very next year is impressive. So it is not surprising that their funding increased from $1.25 million in 2010 to $48 million the very next year. That was with a combined of their Series A and Series B funding. By 2015, the company was already valued at over $50 billion, and they were able to raise another $3.5 billion in funding in 2016. However, we know the cookie is crumbling. In 2017, possibly seeking more funding, Uber opened up about its finances for the first time to Bloomberg and reported a global loss of $3.8 billion for 2016. That included selling their entire operation in China. By 2018, the company had already lost 30% of their value from the previous year. This year also included the fatal crash of a self-driving vehicle from Uber's fleet and the pausing of new licenses in New York. Other problems had also been showing their head. In India, drivers had to pay Uber 20 to 30% of their fares and commissions, which was double the amount when Uber launched. Countries are also split on drivers' employment status, which makes things tricky when you operate in so many different places. But regardless, unions were beginning to form for drivers' rights. Not to mention that Uber is still trying to get their feet under them after such a poor global rollout. The company knew their business model might not be sustainable, and even less so if they are forced to classify workers as employees and pay for related rights and benefits. Man, they must have really enjoyed fighting regulations. Still today, some Uber drivers, especially those in developing countries like South Africa, complain about grueling hours and poor pay. Many entered high-cost leasing deals for their Uber cars, and in the pandemic slowdown and with rising inflation, many can't make ends meet as they struggle to make their car payments. Another issue they faced was public backlash after the drastic increase in prices during peak or high demand times, specifically holidays. Uber was down, but they didn't want to be out. So what did they decide to do? Well, go public, of course. And they made headlines on their IPO on May 9th, 2019, being valued as high as $120 billion. But that wasn't the headline. Uber made the record books with the biggest first-day loss in U.S. history, losing nearly half of its value with $50 billion in losses. Since the IPO, Uber has made multiple purchases and added new business models, including Uber Eats, Lime, Postmates, Jump, Drizzly, and self-driving cars. With all of this expansion in new businesses, I know what you must be thinking. Well, Uber has to be one of the most profitable companies of all time. And there lies the cherry on top for this story. Uber is not a profitable company. In the past 10 years, they have amassed over $20 billion in losses. In fact, since 2014, the year 2018 was the only profitable year for the company, where they made $1 billion. A final sour taste can be left in your mouth knowing that Uber shareholders have recently voted against a proposal that would have required the company to fully disclose its lobbying activities and spending. The company currently operates in over 10,000 cities, but still struggles with profitability and increased competition by other businesses such as Lyft. Here are the final points to the story. Travis Kalanick resigned in 2017 due to pressure from shareholders amid accusations that Uber lied to authorities and fostered a hostile workplace culture. Most of the leadership has also changed since then. Uber has tried to distance itself from the allegations in the Uber files, as their statement describes the content of the leaks to the Kalanick era and stresses the change in leadership and values. Meanwhile, Kalanick's spokesperson has said that Uber's approach to expansion was not his own doing, but instead was under the direct oversight and with the full approval of Uber's robust legal, policy, and compliance groups. The man doesn't deserve any kind of credit, but part of what he said is true. Ultimately, way too many mistakes were made for it to all fall on one person. The truth is that Uber's problems were led by over 100 leaders in dozens of countries around the world at all times, under the direct oversight and with the full approval of Uber's robust legal, policy, and compliance groups. Everyone is at fault here, including Mark McGann, the man who leaked the documents. He admits to being part of the issue within Uber, which is more than we can say about Kalanick. He is quoted as saying, "I should have shown more common sense and pushed harder to stop the craziness. It is my duty to speak up and to help governments and parliaments right some fundamental wrongs. Morally, I had no other choice in the matter." Well, it is nice to know that good does win sometimes, even if it doesn't always feel like it. And now you know. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and possibly even learned something new. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see y'all next time.